and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode I'll be discussing the 2022 science fiction horror Nope, as directed by Jordan Peele, and indeed the third such movie directed, written and co-produced by Peele himself, following on from his last two ingenious and mind-bending hits, 2017's Get Out and 2019's Us. Now, I was actually going to try and do this review without any spoilers. However, when I kind of started jotting down my notes, I did realise that I couldn't talk about the movie without kind of giving some of the game away. And this is definitely the kind of film that's going to be much more significant on your initial viewing. Going in completely blind, so to speak. And so take this as a forewarning. There will be some spoilers in this review, particularly mainly to be like with regards to the direction the film actually takes. And so if you don't want to kind of hear more specific details about the film, then please do switch off now, but please return and do let me know what you thought of the film once you've actually had a chance to check it out. So, this time around, Peele amps up the science fiction with a new and original story of flying saucers, bug-eyed extraterrestrials, and alien invaders. Or at least, that's how we set out. In true Peele fashion, all may not be that it seems, which creates a blood-curdling atmosphere as he seeks to unfold more horrific delights within this new universe of terror. The film follows brother and sister Otis O.J. Hayward and Emerald M. Hayward, as played by Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer, respectively. Apologies for the names. As they struggle to keep their father's Hollywood horse-handling business alive, following his tragically unexpected and unexplained death some 6 months ago. After witnessing strange behaviour amongst their horses and some other strange and unbelievable phenomenon in the night sky, they look to try and capture some real-time HD footage of whatever seems to be out there in order to kind of cash in on it being the first to do so. The thing is, they quickly find they're somewhat over their head, and the entity that's been hanging around their backyard turns into a more macabre and sinister force, one that they hadn't quite reckoned with. So, Nope is a movie with a distinctly different flavour than Peele's previous works. It relies on intrigue and misdirection more so than it does straight-out horror, and the science fiction edge, although present in his previous two movies, is the centrepiece here, and whether or not all of it actually gels is certainly a question in itself. First time around, I think the movie has an excellent amount of fascination that will certainly keep you hooked. There's kind of a tremendous amount of anticipation as we try and uncover what is lurking around every corner. Peele's, creates a tension from our own expectations and not necessarily from those intended or even connected to what's actually happening. The use of sound effects and carefully elicited camera angles are spine-tingling at times. The screeches, the hollows, the howls are unearthly and placed so that they are just out of our reach of understanding. All this sets up the basis for the movie that certainly unsettles the mind. I think the payoff, however, does end up being a little different than perhaps one might expect. Certainly than what I was expecting. And so as we kind of progress, the film evolves more akin to something that wouldn't be out of place in the Cloverfield franchise. And then by the end, tremors. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy what this movie became. I think Peele did an excellent job in creating something just that little bit different in a tried and tested genre. In fact, I enjoyed the creature feature angle more than I actually did the movie's setup, which I felt was far too laborious for the amount of payoff it actually provided to the story. And not all was coherently connected to the main arm of the story as I would have thought it would have been. There's certainly some disturbing visual imagery at play that kind of sets a very creepy tone, but I think there's too much time taken to kind of build up the story and the characters for what we actually needed in the end. A horror that turns into a Western adventure, Most of the build-up seemed like overkill to that end. Most of the terror you experience with this movie would only be relevant on an initial viewing. It certainly keeps its cards close to its chest, but once the jig is up, I think all that you're going to be left with on any subsequent viewing is going to be intrigue. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. Second time around, I definitely think I'll be in it for the science fiction rather than the horror per se. You know, it's that kind of twist and turn that it takes. It does pose a lot more questions than it ever answers, which for me is pretty frustrating. It never really leaves any clues behind either. You're kind of left to ponder much of the reasoning and origin of the phenomenon for yourself. It is a very interesting idea, and Peele does an amazing job with the cinematographic aspects, but story-wise, I couldn't help but think it was a little bit more M. Night Shyamalan than Peele, not quite as slick and with dialogue that seemed fairly chunky to boot. It does get a bit more tantalising and succinct as it delves deeper, swapping between light and breezy moments and those which can be somewhat quite terrifying, pretty abruptly as well. So it does keep you on your toes in that respect. But ultimately, I think it suffers from the fact that it really didn't know what it wanted to be. An historical delve into old Hollywood, a Western adventure, an alien invasion, or a nature documentary, and the dangers of using animals in show business. There's simply a bit too much that it tries to be. A fascinating concept indeed, but as a result, unlike Peele's other works, this doesn't leave you with any real afterthought. But it is a decent take into the genre, and perhaps the mix of styles isn't a bad thing. I'm really torn with this movie, can't you tell? I certainly enjoyed more of the adventure aspects than I did the horror, if I'm honest. And this is more where the film's strength lies for me. There is some spectacle to be had for sure, and enough sleight of hand to keep things moving just where it's needed most. Overall, Peele's third directorial outing is not perhaps what you would have expected from his other works, Get Out and Us, nor quite as succinctly or slickly presented, but it is still, and it still does provide a disturbing and intriguing entry into the science fiction genre, with a decent enough basis to keep you pondering just what he has in store for us around that next corner. I think it's the kind of film that will have different connotations on each viewing, initially being swept away with the horror, and then subsequently more with the science fiction itself, the adventure, and then the intrigue. Go in expecting the unexpected, and don't expect too much, and I think it won't disappoint too much. Personally, I love the fact that what we ended up with was tantamount to being a creature feature. It certainly created a spectacle, and to top it off, the moment Kaluuya's character says the film's namesake in the film, perfect. Nope. We're all sat there right with him on that one, I can tell you. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for my movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. Absolutely loved having you at SciFirst MovieTalk, and definitely love to have you back. Most of all, just thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.